Working Class Framer. I'm your co-host, Josue, here with my co-host,
Austin.
We are going to be talking today about the OG Speak No Evil versus the remake from 2024 by James Watkins. The original came out in 2022, and then they decided, we need to turn this shit around ASAP. We need to, the Americans need it. They need it.
Dose years later, give us the James McAvoy version.
Yeah, make him a little freaky, water it down, please. Like, let's make this silly.
Dude, pump him full of trend and have him flex. Like,
why was he so jacked? James McAvoy
why was he
yoked?
Dude, he's so physically fit. It's kind of intimidating.
I honestly just think that that's just James McAvoy. James McAvoy's just always in good shape, and they were just like, can you just stay in good shape for this role, please?
Ever since Split, he's done this thing where in a movie, he likes to just flex his shoulders and go, ah, and I'm just like, what are you doing? This, savage behavior.
I love James McAvoy and his silly little freak movies. It's funny because we're doing this episode, but we actually did watch this movie when the remake came out. We watched them back to back. We watched the original at Austin's house, and then we drove to an AMC. We were kind of skeptic walking into the movie theater for Speak No Evil, the remake. And we had a horrible, horrible time watching the remake. And equally horrible time watching the original, but for good reasons. The movie, I think, worked really effectively. And so now we're coming back 2 years later to talk about the original Speak No Evil. As we kick things off, guys, we are redirecting our podcast to talk about original horror movies that have been remade. And I know that a lot of these movies usually get a lot of shit because usually they are shit. There's no need for these remakes. But we're here to unpack it. We're here to talk about it. We're here to explore why the hell did they make this remake. So I do want to start this conversation off by saying that my experience with both of these movies actually changed. One drastically and one not as drastically. Probably not in the ways that you would think. I want to ask you, Austin, how did you feel about approaching these two movies, and what were your reactions coming out of it?
I think I approached the original with a sense of glee because I knew in my heart it was a masterpiece, and it really didn't shift too heavily. It mostly landed within the range of acceptability that was, I guess, perceived in my head. Whereas the remake, I was dreading. It felt daunting to me. I just watched a 7-hour movie recently in theaters, and somehow the Speak No Evil remake...
We watched a 7-hour movie.
Yes, we watched it. But this was the movie that gave me butterflies when I was getting ready to turn it on. And, and I also had a reevaluation that I was not anticipating.
All right, for everybody who's listening and watching, I think it's a good point now to say the premise of the movie for both movies, because they are a little bit different, nothing too crazy in terms of the premise. But the premise for Speak No Evil 2022, the original movie, it's a Danish family visits a Dutch family that they met on a holiday. What was supposed to be an idyllic weekend slowly starts unraveling as the Danes try to stay polite in the face of unpleasantness, which is... unpleasantties or unpleasant.
Such a polite way to describe that story. It's so funny.
Right. It's it's an awful experience of a movie. And the 2024 movie, the description here is "Hear No Evil." I guess that is the tagline, which I guess sure. The premise is when an American family is invited to spend the weekend at an idyllic country estate, so it's almost the same thing, of a charming British family. So it's just the British and the American, they just swapped
They're Brit
out,
bongers.
Right, yeah. They just changed their nationalities for the movie.
They made them whiter somehow.
Yeah, they were like, wait, we must make them pure.
Wasn't white enough.
I'm getting some white nationalist vibes,
dude. Both of these countries are not doing well right now. Yeah,
So let me repeat that: when an American family is invited to spend the weekend at an idyllic country estate of a charming British family, also. A charming British family.
British family.
No disrespect to my Brits, man.
No disrespect. They charming.
Befriended on If you're pregnant on a vacation, so what begins as a dream holiday, soon a dream holiday,
turns British. Like
soon wraps into a snarled psychological nightmare. I kind of like this description much more. And it's funny because I think this description for the 2024 movie is perfect for the goofiness and silliness of the remake, which
yeah.
I want to get into the approaches for both movies because and we're going to enter into spoiler territory here. Obviously, guys, if you have not seen either or if you don't want to check them out, we're just going to enter into spoiler territory. Go ahead and watch these movies, come back and let us know what you guys think about it. I will say this up top. I actually enjoyed my Speak No Evil 2024 remake watch a lot more this time as I sort of understood the approach that they wanted to do with Speak No Evil, the remake. And I actually enjoyed my Speak No Evil 2022 original a little less. Now, how I feel about both, whether I like one or the other, I will say at the end. But for now, I think that the approach with the 2022 one is very, very sinister in its nature. There is a family that is slowly being pushed to the limit. See how far that this couple that has welcomed them into their home on the countryside, how far they can push them, how far they can get away without them ever saying no. How they react in the face of confrontation, whether they do it or not. I picked up the same themes that they were putting down. We are presented with her being a vegetarian and almost this like push against pseudo woke, right? Or people who claim to have progressive values but aren't going all the way. And I think that it's very interesting in the way that it approaches it because I do think that in the end, she is doing something actively, whether it is not all the way, right? She's doing something to help improve not only her health, but of course the environment. I think that is a noble cause because obviously in the face of late stage capitalism, any sort of push towards change is effectively helping it. No matter how small or big, everyone can do their part. And it almost, to me, the premise of the 2022 movie was the same sort of read that I got the first time, where I view them as almost like the elites and seeing how far they can get away with destroying our climate, destroying our communities, destroying everything that makes us human. And to the point where we are literally on the brink of extinction. And I married that with the moment where he steps out of his car to take a piss. The keys are in the ignition and he almost like takes the piss out of the moment and just sort of almost like laugh in our faces, even when presented with an opportunity to take advantage and maybe step up and do something about what is going on. A lot of us, including myself, sometimes will just rather just sit in the passenger seat because we don't even know how to react appropriately sometimes to these circumstances. And of course, this movie is very sinister all the way to its last frame. And I did find some problems with it this time. I will address that in my pros and my cons. And then I think the approach for the 2024 one was in a way scaling back a lot of their decisions and allowing for there to be a little bit more belief and logic into what is going on as opposed to sort of just believing that this family is accepting everything because there was a little bit more.
In the 2024 one?
In the 2024 one, yeah. That's how I felt. And they even sort of poke fun of the joke about the doctor because they are the ones that erase it because even then they twisted and like, of course I'm a doctor, which we know he's not.
Yeah.
But I found that to be very interesting on my approach. Also, there is different approaches to their purpose and what they're doing. And it ultimately all lies on James McAvoy's character, which is Patty. He is the central evil of this movie because it is revealed to us his innate structure of what he's doing there and how he's been capturing and manipulating everything from the jump, including his wife, which I found very interesting. Austin, what were your takeaways with the purpose of this movie? Because I think this is very important to talk about. Because as we talk about the OG versus the remake, a lot of the times, I sometimes will like a remake more if it is presenting us with a new premise, it is doing something new, it is justifying its existence. It's not just being a beat for beat remake. Why are you doing this movie? I think it's important to discuss that. What were some of your takeaways with the purpose of the 2022 and the 2024?
It's funny because while I did enjoy the 2024 one on reappraisal, I think the faults I have with 2024 actually strengthened the 2022 one for me.
Interesting.
Because for me, the 2022 film is a very simple story. And I think the two takeaways I got was how one man's selfishness and his almost like desperate desire to feel exhilaration in his life again can lead him to just ignore so many problems to the point where it's almost comical how much he's willing to ignore.
Yeah.
And second, there was this phrase I said in my head when I first watched it, on my first viewing, where
Yeah.
the horrors of being perceived as someone unlikable. People don't want to be ostracized, and I think
Yeah.
people will sort of endure very uncomfortable or boundary pushing moments in their lives because the last thing they would ever want to, sort of just seen as like unlikable or
Yeah.
rude or, those social norms. And I think for me, what I
Afraid of
loved about
confrontation.
afraid of confrontation, but also how social norms can be weaponized. And I think the villains, I have their character
I
names,
like that.
Patrick and Karen. The
Yeah.
way that movie meticulously sets up these scenarios where they exploit those social norms and they exploit that, the manners of the main two characters is
Yeah.
very fleshed out. And when I was looking at it, I could see how each dot connected, where I was like, I could see how this went one way, but how it could go another way, depending on the person. Visually expressing so much with very little dialogue. I think of the opening and how so much is explained without words. And this
Yeah.
kind of led to my viewing of the 2024 remake. I I will say, before anything, I was
Yeah.
extremely entertained by it, more so than I was on my initial watch, because
Yeah.
like I think
Most
I was going
definitely.
in, yeah, because I was going in ready to sort of engage with it in a way that was negative. I kind of went in with
Sure.
this like nihilistic attitude of this can't reach this certain level of quality, so I'm
Yeah.
gonna immediately dismiss it, which is not fair
Well,
to it.
and this is what I was getting at and why I think this is important to discuss because I think as we go
Mm-hmm.
through all of these original versus remakes,
Mm-hmm.
understanding what their intent is with the movie itself is going to be so vital to not only our enjoyment but our discussion and understanding of the
Mm-hmm.
movies themselves. And that is why I ended up walking away appreciating the remake a lot more because
Mm-hmm.
it's funny because you say that you walked in ready to hate, and I think part of me was also ready to hate when I walked in,
Mm-hmm.
and I definitely walked in wanting an American remake, knowing that it
Mm-hmm.
was not going to be the same movie. Like I knew they were not going
Mm-hmm.
to go all the way. What shocked me was especially the ending of this movie. I don't think it definitely gets to the depravity of the original, but I do think
No.
that the ending is still pretty fucking crazy. Even for American
Yeah.
audiences, even for American audiences, and we can
Uh-huh.
discuss that at a little bit more length. But I do want to talk about Speak No Evil and its intent with the remake. Having James McAvoy's Patty be the central evil focus of the whole movie. And what I did
Mm-hmm.
notice on my rewatch of So Speak No Evil, the original, I was starting to pick up on a lot of what people were saying about the continuous cycle of, oh my God, these people are really dumb. They are letting this stuff go on for too long.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't entirely agree with them, but I do start to see a little bit more of the redundancy in the script with with the original this time around. I don't necessarily see it as an entirely bad thing. As we were
Mm-hmm.
starting to get to the end is when I started to feel the redundancy a little bit. The way the script is written, the way that this film is edited, makes for such an exhilarating watch regardless. But I did notice a little bit of like, okay, guys, like come on now.
Yeah.
Like, come on now. This one,
Mm-hmm.
this like maybe here is the line drawn. But I guess that harps onto the point
Yeah.
of the purpose of the movie, right? The purpose is like how far are you willing to allow things to simmer down?
Mm-hmm.
But I still think that the movie does this in a very effective way to where I am enthralled by their idiocy. Like I am, and I think
Yeah.
it comes down to the character writing because I am just watching these
Yeah.
people just let themselves be pushed around. And I think regardless of its redundancy, I had such a good time watching this movie
Mm-hmm.
and I still felt the weight of that ending and holy shit, what a fucking ending, you know?
Oh yeah. Well, see, I have a funny thing with this because I don't believe anyone would fall for it in the Speak No Evil remake. But I think the way they explore it in the original, I could see how someone with no self respect and a lack of boundaries could fall for it. Because I'm going to be real.
I disagree. In the Speak No Evil remake, I do feel like it is a little bit more believable only because there's a lot more pause in the first one. I felt like when I was watching it, where I was like, that seems very off. Whereas in the remake, I felt like they were making much more swift decisions. They were not allowing shit to slide too much. And I also was a little bit thrown off by the dad in the beginning. I was like, he feels very weird, very awkward. And I finally realized what it was. And it was literally their conflict. They came into this house with marriage problems, right? Whereas the first movie, it sort of leans on the father figure having its masculine insecurity. He's not secure in himself as a person, period, or as a father. And in this movie, the dad is struggling with the fact that his wife cheated emotionally on him, and he doesn't really know how to kind of come to terms with that. And I found that to be actually a very interesting angle to this movie, and to even why like he is sort of hesitant to kind of like be there or be emotionally present, as opposed to the other one just being just a fucking coward, and weak and just very self-centered, which I don't think is a bad thing. Again, I think it works to that movie's benefit. Here, I found it added a different layer and they explored something different that I thought was very interesting. Again, I don't know why this rewatch, I ended up believing a lot more and it felt way more believable as to why they were staying. And again, everything didn't feel too forced. Of course, James McAvoy's character Patty is he's a very audacious guy. He's loud. He's abrasive. He's very charismatic.
Yeah.
He does cross the line a couple of times.
Couple of times.
Yeah, a couple of times.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, well, though, speak your evil.
Because I think it's all wrong in the remake. I think he starts off way too abrasive. I think of the scene where right off the bat at the table, they're like, oh, you can't have ice cream. And he's like, oh, you're a tough crowd. I contrast that with the original where that first meeting of them is almost like angelic. They almost play normal to a point that makes me buy their ability to manipulate people. Whereas James McAvoy, he's already like riding on a motorcycle. He's making comments. Granted, it's not terrible at first. Like I like the joke he made about the Danish people. Like, oh, like, do you like fold or wipe or whatever? That was funny. Yeah. But like as soon as they get to that house, he's like already giving her the chicken, and maybe it's just like I'm being able to pick up American behavior more than I can European behavior.
Yeah.
I was like, no, I don't feel like they play it subtle enough at first to get to that point. Whereas in the original, they really know how to pepper it through, where like it starts off so simple. I think of that scene in the bar where he just drinks and he's like, oh, he's like paying for it, and he just goes, oh, thank you, and he just leaves. And like little things like that where I'm like, ooh, it's getting worse. Yeah. And then it's getting worse. And then in the first 50 minutes of the remake, it just does that all like instantly. For me, it was a little too quick. I feel like they broached the boundaries so fast that I can't conceivably believe them getting ensnared.
See, I find that James McAvoy's Patty's character is so out there that it allows them to excuse his behavior. This is why I feel like it actually works in their benefit, because him being this loud and crazy, I'm just so out there, man. His demeanor allows for plausible deniability a lot. He's a pretentious asshole who probably listens to Joe Rogan. Like even the conversation that they're having, like all of this stuff that he presents himself as from the jump gives a lot of leeway to his behavior. I think him being this abrasive, loud person, it's just kind of like you excuse it, right? When you see someone, and we've all been there. At least I had an old friend, right, who was just very much out there, super loud. They're saying like out of pocket shit from time to time, and you just sort of excuse it because that is who they are. They've presented themselves as this person. And so you're just like, oh, That's just who they are. You excuse a lot of this behavior by this. And funny, as I'm talking about this, it's almost like tying into the premise here, and it's scarily enough, and here we're going to enter into some spoiler territory, which I found to be very interesting because they make a remark about that earlier on in the movie. She says, how old was she when they met? And the husband shuts it down immediately, which I didn't find to be particularly just a throwaway line, because at the end when they're being held up, she's like, help me, help me, help me. I'm a victim too. And the dad's just like, fuck that. We need to survive, right? And it kind of also ties into the fact that when they were leaving, the daughter like yells, they threw him in the pond. And it's almost like, I think the movie here is more about what are you willing to sacrifice for your survival? That's kind of like the premise here of the movie. They went back for the little boy at the risk of them not making it. And then when they were locked up in that room with all of them, they had the chance to maybe potentially save this woman, but she said that she's a victim too. And they said, fuck that. The dad was like, nah, fuck no. Like, we're leaving. I do think that there's a massive possibility that she was a victim. And like, I think there's our room for argument there, and became maybe even what's the word?
It's like Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah, like Stockholm syndrome, where they just end up falling in love with them. And I do really appreciate that angle, and I think that like it ties into his psyche and his need to control people, and even like own the situation. Makes for a really evil character. I think that's why I really like this movie upon rewatch. Just because a lot of this lies on him and his abusive children. And I think that ending strikes so much different now, because you have a kid who was tormented by this man, and he was able to get back his. And I think it's just, maybe I won't say just as dark, but it definitely gets there. It definitely gets there. To use a kid to grab a brick and smash this dude's head in was brutal. I was watching
it's badass.
Like, damn, this is fucking crazy. I don't remember it feeling this way. I think I was pissed because, of course, our approach is different here.
Well, no, and I get you. And like, I definitely, there was an excitement to it that I found enthralling. You know what I mean? Like, it's not boring by any measure. I guess it's just like, this is where I kind of clash with it a little bit. It definitely entertained me. And to give James McAvoy some credit, that scene where he's talking about why he loves hunting and it's the lure that gets him, not the kill itself, I think that's phenomenal. And I think that scene and so many scenes
kind of plays into my themes that I'm talking about too.
Yes. It's just the manipulation for me is such a critical component to get them to that point. Like the third act I thought was fun because once they stopped the manipulation and it became just a roller coaster, I thought that's where it excelled. It was more just like this build up where I was like, I love James McAvoy, but I'm just not buying that a family would cave into him because he is charismatic, yes. But see, whereas Patty is charismatic, I think Patrick in the original is smooth. I think of that scene where they drive home drunk after the bar and they come back and the way he looks at Karen, the wife, and he's like, like, I completely understand. He's so friendly, and how he like he says every right word correctly and delivers it like with like Oscar level acting. It depends on who you are as a person and what you fall for and whatnot. I guess I could just picture more in the original. Their ability to sort of navigate those situations where they're in trouble and somehow flip it and make it so there's that plausible deniability. Because you said plausible deniability. I will use a scene and example later in the pros and cons, but I think it's way more plausible in the original. And this goes into the writing of the first film, because I think the director of that first film is very good at setting up the scenario where who's at fault. While it is like ultimately the villain's fault, there's plenty of scenarios in the movie. And I think of the scene with the kid in the bed where the build up to it leaves just enough faults around at everybody to where, once again, that weaker person could be persuaded. Whereas like the Speak No Evil remake, it's like he's doing the trend flex with his like shoulders out and he's just like, you're actually kind of a bitch. And then he's just like, I'm just kidding. It's funny and I like it. I just don't buy that manipulation.
I tend to disagree. Even talking about it right now is like leading me to believe more about why I feel that in a situation where someone is being way too nice, way too cordial, I feel like most people would have the courage to set a boundary there, right? As
Mm-hmm.
opposed to someone like James McAvoy's character, Patty, because someone
Mm-hmm.
like Patty tends to be very loud, very abrasive. They just demand a lot, right? And so it's
Mm-hmm.
very intimidating to approach a character like Patty and say, "Hey, I don't like this," as opposed to a warm and welcoming family who has started to step over the line and, sort of cross boundaries that are
Mm-hmm.
not said, but are definitely need to be put a stop to. And I feel, even as we talk about this, I think about it more and more. I think to myself, I'm like, yeah, you know what? A lot of people might feel a little bit more empowered to speak out against someone who is a little more calm and collective and might seem normal, as opposed to someone who
Yeah.
is as loud and abrasive as Patty. This is where I
Mm-hmm.
kind of believe a little bit more into the story. And although I have a lot more fun kind of suspending my disbelief and enjoying their idiotic decisions in Speak No Evil, the original, I do find it a lot more believable upon
Mm-hmm.
rewatch with 2024. And I think we should get into the pros and the cons here because I think there's plenty to love about both. I will start off
Mm-hmm.
by saying my pros with the 2022 original. I think everybody's acting is pretty fantastic. I particularly think back to the wife. I think the wife is out
Mm-hmm.
acting everyone, and I'm not going to not say her name here. Her name is, I'm going to pull it up right now. Her name is Sisdel Seam Coach. I'm sure I'm butchering that name, but she actually
Hell
stars in
yeah.
Greenland too. She started in a couple of other
Hell
movies.
yeah.
But she absolutely was incredible in Speak No Evil. I think she was a top performance for me. Along with Morten Burian, which is the husband. And
Mm-hmm.
although I enjoy the couple that is hosting them, which is Fedja Van Hoot, and these are Danish names, guys, or Dutch names, and Karina Smolders, both are entertaining to watch and give convincing performances. I do think the couple that suffers is giving just incredible performances.
Mm-hmm.
I love the cinematography of Speak No Evil, the original, and that is going to go to Eric Molberg Henson. He's done a couple of other movies. His cinematography work in Speak No Evil, the original 2022, is phenomenal. I was consistently drawn into the way everything looked and was shot. And just seeing the countryside, everything was so beautiful about 2022's Speak No Evil. And of course, I can't say my pros without saying the ending, such a brutal finish, and the cut of sound to the first impact of the stone and immediately seeing the bruises on their bodies. Fucking
Oh.
unbelievable job from the VFX team and the makeup and design team. What a haunting ending to this movie. Those are my pros for the Speak No Evil 2022. I don't know if you got some pros for the 2022 Speak No Evil.
Yeah, I think the main character is way more compelling to me in terms of what his arc is. Because you know what's funny? You said something earlier, their idiocy. And on rewatch of the 2022, I had this sort of epiphany where I was like, is it so much idiocy or what I was sort of interpreting with that rewatch, he is so bored with his life and he is so miserable at home. Like, I think, once again, one of my favorite openings to a film where it shows that little montage of him at his kid's recital. He's having dinners, and you can just tell he's like zoned out. He's not present. So many decisions in Speak No Evil 2022, down to the first scene where he sees the tongue. How far is one man's selfishness willing to go? And how far is he going to allow him the sort of bear trap to clamp his ankle before he finally understands there's a fucking problem? His wife does sort of talk back. You know, she does
Yeah.
go, hey, this is weird, right? But he's like, no, 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 no. Like, it's fine. Like, I'm having fun swimming in the pool all day, you know?
Yeah.
And I almost see it less as idiocy and almost a father's inability to see the red flags because he just doesn't care. I really love the writing. I just think that the way the film showcases, you know, cowardice and just those little gray areas in communication with people, I've rarely seen done. And this also plays into the cinematography, which is like chef's kiss. I think of that scene where after he showed the tongue, he runs inside and he sees the house, and on one side he sees the mothers in the nice warmly lit kitchen cooking, and on the other side he just sees the father standing there in pitch black. And it communicates such an ominous warning right there that Bjorn just ignores. And that ending is just, you know me, I love my nihilistic endings, and that
Yeah.
just was like, it just commits. It's so perfect.
No, yeah, it's awesome. So your pros are just the writing.
Yeah, the pros are, I would say, writing, cinematography, acting, and I would say, just the editing too. Like, I just think the way everything flows into each other. I think it's kind of a pitch perfect film. Like, I don't really have much complaints about it, but I do surprisingly have some cons, which we will get into.
Let's get into our pros for the 2024. Speak No Evil, and obviously, I think I could speak for both of us. A major pro is James McAvoy. I mean,
Oh,
everybody's who has seen
he's
this
so
movie has talked
good.
about his performance in here, and it honestly struck me even more this time around because I was enjoying his performance when I first watched it, but because I was just not watching it with the proper lens, I just kind of was whatever about the whole thing. But James McAvoy is truly so fucking incredible in this movie. He's doing some amazing work. I was honestly also impressed with, I believe it's Aisling Franciosi, which is she's actually in Twinless. She's the girlfriend in
Yeah.
Twinless.
Hmm.
She's actually been in a lot. She was actually also in stop motion, which I fucking love. If you guys haven't seen stop motion, I can't recommend stop motion enough. But she was great. I was really impressed with both of them. It's funny because in the original, I like the couple staying there, and in the remake, I like the couple that was hosting. I think they were acting much better than the couple that was staying there, which obviously is Scoot McNairy and Mackenzie
Mm.
Davis. Mackenzie Davis, I forget what stuff she's in, but she was in The Martian. She's in Blade Runner 2049. That's where I know her from. Great performances from James McAvoy, Aisling Franciosi, and I really did enjoy that third act. The third act is so much fun to me, although this movie wasn't hitting the same way that the original was, I did find the third act to be enthralling. I had such a fun time. So these are my pros with the movies. What is your pros with Speak No Evil from 2024?
James McAvoy out of the way because he's a titan of acting. I liked the cinematography. I thought it looked gorgeous. I thought the way the camera flowed at times, like the framing and blocking, was surprisingly competent. I don't think it's a bad movie in terms of visual language by any means. I think too, especially the way it captured the British countryside was pretty serene. And I did like some of the location choices, and specifically the differentiating sequences that sort of like show how those boundaries getting violated. I thought some of them were pretty interesting, and like how they chose to approach it. Even though
Yeah.
if it didn't necessarily always pay off, I was like, okay, like I do appreciate that they didn't just literally copy and paste the entire thing, you know?
Yeah.
So that was cool. I will say that ending is cool. Uh, yeah, I like
You said, bro, is that like you hated on this
I like the
movie?
brick to the face. It's just like I like the brick to the face. I guess it's just more like it's a
Well,
cool
let's hop
ending.
into it. Let's hop into our
Yeah,
cons for Speak No Evil 2024. Let's work in reverse. What are your cons with
yeah.
the movie?
I just don't think the movie's logic with some of these scenarios adds up in the way that the 2022 version works. And I'm going to bring back that scene I said I was going to mention because I think both of these scenes show the positive of 2022 and the negative 2024. The scene where the mom goes to the room and finds her daughter laying in the bed. The way they set that up in the original, and I'm only bringing up the original right now so I can contrast it with the remake. That scene, Bjorn and Louise is her name, share intimacy. They rekindle that intimacy for the first time in what seems to be a prolonged period of, distance between them. And during that scene, the daughter comes knocking at the door going, hey, hey, and they ignore him. And the villain, Patrick, kind of takes advantage of that. And the mom finds out she went to go sleep in their room and he's butt naked in the bed. Like, it's extremely inappropriate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the way they use that scene and the guilt trip to sort of turn that into manipulation fuel where the parents have every right to be pissed. There's no excuse for that. It's inappropriate. But the way they managed to weaponize it and use that back against them because they were being selfish, they were ignoring their child while they were having sex. While it's not okay, I could see how, once again, with that weaker boundaries, the person with no self respect, and if you're a master seasoned killer manipulator, that could be used in a way to sort of attack from a gray area. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where in the 2024 one, they have, and granted, they do have this beautiful conversation about their relationship that I think works, but she just walks into the room and she's just in the bed. There's no knocking, nothing. And right there, and then they try to leave and they come back. And to me, it just doesn't work because she gives this speech about, oh, well, she was scared and it reminded me of my dead daughter. And I was like, yeah, bullshit. Like, no matter what story you spin, like, that's just not going to work for me because there is no outlying circumstances that could that could make that story sound real. Whereas,
Funny
like, and
enough, I'm gonna have to push back here because I do think that it is a lot more outrageous to see your daughter in a bed with a naked man who you do not know, right? Regardless of the circumstance, regardless of them having
Mhm.
sex or not, right? As opposed to finding your daughter in the bed with the couple. Bad still, right? It's still a very bad scenario. There's no
Yeah.
clothes that are off. She's laying with her. And then when they come back, it is set up to be like she's absolutely enraged, rightfully so. And they almost took a little while to get to the result there. They were avoiding talking about it. And then she was just like, it's because I lost my daughter. And the way that they set it
Mm.
up there, to me, it's like, to me, it makes way more sense to stick around for something like that. And obviously, I still would be like, damn, that sucks, OG. I gotta go. I
Yeah.
would say that, but like sticking around for a couple who you found your daughter in a bed with a man that was naked, as opposed to sticking around.
Mhm.
Right. And obviously you were having sex. Like, yeah, you didn't attend to your daughter. I don't give a fuck what the scenario is. Right. Like, it doesn't matter. There's no excuse for that. As opposed to
Mhm.
your daughter was in a bed laying next to the woman who was clothed and she says that she lost her daughter. I don't think I would stick around. That still seems more plausible to me than the other scenario. I think, in my opinion.
I agree. See, like, I don't necessarily disagree with you. I just think, like, the added setup of them ignoring their child and she's like pounding on the door as they ignore him. And the only reason I'm saying this is because I'm speaking to the manipulation of the killers, where even though both situations are wrong, the way they set it up in the original and the way they weaponize it in the original, even though obviously, like you said, I don't give a fuck, OG, like, I'm gone.
Right.
It's more like there's a layer to it where I'm like, okay, like, it's still shitty, but Bjorn is a fucking loser coward and they're just kind of spineless. So I could see how a master manipulator could take that context and that setup and weaponize it against them and be like, well, where the fuck were you? Whereas in the remake, it's like she's just in there. And I'm like, okay, like, granted, I don't think necessarily the daughter dying is a terrible excuse, but I just feel like there's less of a setup that feels plausible. Because for me, in the remake, it's like, okay, your daughter died, but why is she next to James McAvoy in his tiny ass underwear? You know what I mean?
She
Like, that's
wasn't
just,
next to She wasn't next to James McAvoy.
or well,
She was
just
next to
next to them,
the
because
mom.
like, because they're still pretty skimpy, and I'm just like, I don't
No, for
know,
sure.
like,
I mean, I just like, the thing is, you say this argument
like
about
one plays on guilt
manipulation.
where one doesn't.
I mean, is that not guilt?
No, well, because like in the remake, there is no guilt to be had. She doesn't
I
come to the
mean,
door, like, so it's like,
she's manipulating them by throwing on the fact that she lost her daughter. Like, that is still like,
yeah,
and whether
but
or not it's true, it's still manipulation, right? Like, that is still manipulation here, and it
yeah,
also reserves the fact that she has never opened up to them about them. This is very shocking news. It's just very convenient, right? Obviously, we understand this, but it is used as a manipulation tool here to get them to be like, hey, like, oh, like that makes a lot more sense. Like, yeah, I get it. Like, she heard her cry. Like,
Fair.
they were arguing. There was no knock on the door. Like, obviously, like
But
in
and
the
see, we
other
don't even
scenario,
hear her cry though, because see, right there, if she would have used that excuse, I would have been like, I didn't hear her cry. She didn't knock. Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, you know what I mean?
but all it takes
Like,
is for her to be like, yeah, well, I heard her cry. Like, and I felt that way. And like, like
yeah.
that's all that it would matter. That's all that would matter. Look,
But I guess
I
that's an inference for me.
sure. Yeah. Of course, of course.
Well, just in the sense that, like, because I don't necessarily think what you're saying is wrong. Like, I could get
Yeah,
that. It's just more like the movie doesn't show that or insinuate that. She just says that. So it's like, okay, like I'm just going off your word at this point. Whereas in the original, there's a clear setup of like them ignoring their kid. There's that build, that thread, and it pays off in that way. Whereas in Speak No Evil 2024, they just kind of like, this just happened. And I'm like,
yeah,
okay, and I that's fair. The way you're saying it to me right now, I can understand that. That's fair. But
yeah.
it's just, I guess for me, it just didn't work.
That's fair. That's fair. What are some other cons that didn't work for you for the 2024?
I think the reveal of like them as killers, like the kid taking her into the basement, I thought like it was kind of lame. And him doing the like, like I was just like,
Yeah.
all right, like that was the moment it started to feel like, okay, you're like, it's like brain soup. Like I was like,
Sure.
this is just.
Yeah.
Whereas in the original, I think of that scene where Bjorn, because this is right after he drowns the kid. He doesn't even know it yet. And he
Yeah.
goes upstairs and he sees that ominous ass room and then comes downstairs and sees that kid's body just floating in the water. It's like haunting. I remember the lighting in that scene. And like, I don't know, it just felt like such a trailer moment in the remake where it's just like, all right, remember, this is where the trailer cuts. I think it's a less interesting way inherently to explore it. And it's fun, but I just think it definitely settled for a more of a Blumhouse roller coaster energy than like something more
Sure.
dynamic, I guess.
Yeah, I kind of want to go into my cons here too, because I
Mm-hmm.
mostly I agree with a lot of what you're saying here. I think that the ending, although a lot of fun, I feel like there could have been, even if this was the angle, right? He's the bad guy. I really would have loved to explore that angle that she is a victim too. I think that would have tied everything together very perfectly. And like he is just a literal predator and groomer, and he holds these kids like that's fucking crazy. That's evil. So I think playing on that would have made for such an interesting and riveting third act, especially with the conclusion that we get here. Um, I do feel at times like it can be a little too silly for what we're doing. And I agree the reveal did feel a little bit lame. It felt like it had no landing whatsoever. It just kind of happened. And, all that to be said, I feel like there could have played up a little bit on the silliness if this was the
Mm,
angle. I don't think that the writing is all that there sometimes, and sometimes the dialogue is a little too corny. All that to be
yeah.
said, regardless of my cons, I did have a lot more fun this time. It goes without saying, I do think that the cons are a little bit heavier with Speak No Evil 2024 as opposed to my cons with the Speak No Evil 2022, which I found to be a little bit redundant. I touched on this earlier. My cons with the 2022 was that I did feel like it was a little redundant, and I started to see a little bit more of the cracks that people will talk about in terms of their decisions, in terms of like the turnaround for the bunny. That's where I just kind of like, at that point, I had to stop believing what is plausible for any normal person, because any normal parent is not turning around for the bunny, and I think at that
Yeah.
point I had to just shut it off. Afterwards, I just obviously let go into the movie and I had a good time with it. But I did feel like a little bit of the writing felt a little redundant. I think that's mainly my con. I do think that there is a flawless movie with a 10-minute edit down. This would have been a like a masterpiece at 120 as opposed to 130. Although I still very much enjoy Speak No Evil 2022. That's my cons. I don't know if you had any cons for Speak No Evil the 2022, the OG.
Yeah, it actually shares a tether. This goes for both Speak No Evils. There's one scene that breaks immersion for me where I just don't see a parent buying this. And it's when they bring the babysitter over and it's just a random guy. That in both versions actually. This is kind of a dual con.
Yeah. No, I
But
agree. Yeah, yeah.
and they do kind of, I will say, to slight positive for 2024, they do make a really good joke where they talk about, oh yeah, like if he causes a problem, we'll have him deported. And I was like, oh, okay, like that's kind of a good line from James McAvoy. When they bring that guy in and they're like, yeah, we just have him watch the kids, and it's just the sketchiest looking dude somehow made him look even sketchier in 2024. And I was
You
just
know
like,
what? I don't remember much of the 2024 one. I don't remember how he looked like because I think in the 2024 one, they speed that up hella fast as opposed to the 2022 one, which I find to its detriment because in the 2022, there is like a solid minute or two when they're just like, so like, yeah, is there a problem? And like, yeah,
yeah,
there's a fucking problem.
yeah.
Who is this? Who
and
is this
and I
guy,
guess
bro?
yeah, no, like that was the one time I was like, no. Knowing my gut intuition, I'd just be like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, I don't care. I'm not leaving them with him. And that was the one time where I was like, okay, there's a lot of 2022 where they break those boundaries and I can see the plausibility, or at least a way in which it can get manipulated with a dumber person or just less
Yeah.
emotionally intelligent person, I should say. But yeah, like that one scene, I was just like, they're just like, yeah, he was in an asylum, and I was just like, oh, like I'm not, I guess the kids are coming, like I'm not leaving them here, like what the fuck. Another flaw I have with 2022, and it's another minor flaw. I kind of wish there was a little more, not necessarily a pursuit, but he kind of figures everything out, and they try to get away, and the car breaks down, and they're just like immediately found. And I kind of was like, oh, I thought it would have been like a little more tense if they prolonged it a little bit. Like maybe they got a little ahead down the road. Maybe they did find a house and then like really compound that pain by having them be found. Cause like they're kind of just found immediately. And it's just like, oh, like why did bro just spawn? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
like Brett, like he's just like, I found you. Like,
Well, like that was a plan. I think that was a plan for the
yeah,
movie's benefit. Like that was always a plan. Like let them get far
yeah,
enough, like to where we could find them. Like it's not going to be a big
true.
deal.
You're
Um,
right.
but yeah, I mean, and I guess to what you're saying is what you get in the remake because in the remake you do get your cat and mouse. You know,
That
like
is true. No, and that
so.
does work.
Yeah, it's funny. I think these two movies, and I think this is why it's so important to talk about the purpose of them. And
Mhm.
hopefully, as we get further down the line, we can start separating them more and more. I feel like I'm getting a lot better at this, where I'm able to kind of just clean slate. I cannot think about the original. I have to take this movie at what it's offering me. And what is the director trying to say with this movie? Reason why I like Highest to Lowest. We can visit that another time.
That's
That's
the
not
next
horror,
verses.
but
Yeah.
yeah. But either way, look, I'm gonna say my verdict. I think I'm still going to choose the original over the remake. Although I will gladly play Speak No Evil at a party. That's
Mhm.
my verdict. That's my takeaway. What is your takeaway?
Yeah, I think Speak No Evil 2022 is still one of my favorite horror films of the past 10 years, but I did have a newfound enjoyment and a sort of entertainment with the remake that I don't think it's as egregious as I once declared it. I wrote my star review in the middle of the movie in 2024 and I wrote the Tubi version. So
Yeah.
it's not the Tubi version no more. So
No. I want to give him a lot more credit. And honestly, watching
yeah.
this got me kind of excited for Clayface. Shout out James Watkins, bro, is directing Clayface. So I'm excited
Yeah.
to see what
Speak
bro.
No Clay.
Speak no Clay. Yeah. All right, guys. Working class frame rate. We're gonna catch you guys in another one. The next episode, if you guys want to get ahead, will be Texas Chainsaw Massacre OG versus the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I'm really excited to get to that. I'm really excited
Me
to
too.
rewatch Texas. Finally, see Texas Chainsaw Massacre in color.
In
Because most
color.
don't know that I haven't even
Yeah.
seen it in fucking color. I've only seen it in a washed out 16 millimeter print. I'm so fucking excited. But listen, we'll catch you guys on the next episode. We'll be back very soon. I'm your co-host, Josue, here with my co-host.
Austin.
And we're Working Class Framing. We'll catch you on the next one.
Sayonara.
Class Framing.